Children were literally crying when teachers on teaching practice were leaving because they bonded and they connected with these children, but they never had the cane. Most of children would do everything not to disappoint you when they realize that you trust them. Violence is instilling fear, is instilling pain so that the child can act in a way that you want.
Hello, wherever you are watching, welcome to Before 18. This is a program that discusses issues related to children, people who are making impact on children-related issues, and so many other aspects affecting children in our community. The main reason as to why we are doing this program is because it's important for us to give people an opportunity to share their stories on how they're impacting children, and also we'll also be able to share stories of children on how they are impacting other children and how they are sharing their voices in our community. And today we are doing the first episode, and we are being joined by one amazing person who has won the Head of State's commendation and is also a Shivning recipient for the year 2021-2022, and will be sharing his story in a few. Karibu sana, my brother.
Thank you so much.
You know, sometimes it's very difficult for me to share your story because you have a lot that needs to be shared, but I feel so honored to be here with you and to give you this platform to share your story.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much, Collins.
Yes.
My name is Robert Ooko Omoa, Head of State Commendation. I'm a teacher at GU Secondary School in Kisumu Sub-County, Kisumu Nyakach Sub-County, Kisumu County. I'm a child rights advocate, and currently, as you've said, I'm a Shivning Scholar 2021-2022. So thank you so much for having me.
Wow. Now, one of the reasons as to why I thought to bring you on board, to be the first person to share your story on how you're impacting children, is because of the background that you have on dealing with children. And just hearing Head of State commendation, what contributed to that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because in 2018, I remember we were doing a girls tournament, and I received so many phone calls of people telling me, hey, it was actually on 12th December. This was during Jamhuri Day, is it Madaraka Day celebration, and people were telling me I'd gotten this award, and I think it was even because of what I was doing right there and then, and what we had been doing with other teachers as a beacon teacher. And I remember this started in 2015 when Teacher Service Commission and Plan International came together to train a pool of teachers in five sub-counties of Kisumu, Kwale, Kilifi, Mombasa, and Nairobi. And I happened to have been one of those teachers who were trained. And we hit the road, and we started sensitizing children, sensitizing teachers on how to look out for the rights of children. We even went to funerals. We talked about 116. We talked about what to look out for to know whether a child has been violated or not. So I think the work that we did reached far and wide, and that's how I, together with the other 3 teachers, were selected for that award.
Now, what is Beacon Teachers, and how do you guys work? And what has been the contribution so far in relation to children?
Yeah, now Beacon Teachers Africa is an organization that advocates for safeguarding children in school and also out of school. So it has been a journey. As I said before, it was started off by Plan International working closely with the Teacher Service Commission. And you realize that these teachers, so many teachers out there are doing great stuff. They're doing great job. Even before I was born, I know there were teachers who had the 3rd year for the child. And maybe even some are listening to me now. They may not even know about Beacon Teachers. But now when this organization was started, it brought together teachers who are looking out for the rights of children. And it also trains teachers to also think of not only impacting knowledge, but also looking out for the welfare of children. Because so many cases of abuse go unreported, so many cases of abuse go unattended to, because the teacher is known as the light in the society. And if the teacher is not informed in a certain area, then so many people suffer. Actually, beacon teachers is derived from the word beacon, which is a point of reference. Yeah. Like when you are talking about demarcation of land, a beacon is a point of reference, like a lighthouse, where anybody in the community can refer to when there is a case of violence against children. So you realize that beacon teachers have moved out strongly to do sensitization, both online, on Facebook, on WhatsApp groups, in funerals, as I mentioned before, in gatherings, and the result has been impressive, because we've had more teachers coming on board, and we've had even religious leaders, education officers coming forward to actually speak out for the rights of children. And we have had so many children rescued, so many children connected to service providers, because basically, you know, these are teachers, so they are not all out in the field defending children, but they get cases from parents, they get cases from children themselves, because remember, a child spends the most time with a teacher, even more than the parent. So you realize that these children are able to trust these teachers and tell them, hey, there is this child in the community who is being violated, is being denied a right to go to school because they are disabled, or this child in class is going through this kind of abuse. And realize that the teacher is able to connect the child to a safe space, the teacher is able to connect the child to the hospital, to the police, and that's basically what beacon teachers are doing, and the results have been phenomenal. And we are still recruiting, and we want at least every school in Kenya to have a beacon teacher.
Wow.
Yes.
So what has been the impact, like, countrywide?
The impact is so visible, because for 4 members of Beacon Teachers Africa to be recognized by the president.
4 members?
Yes, with the head of state commendation. That one tells you how far the impact these teachers are creating has gone. Children, I think when I look at our statistics, per year close to 50 cases of violence against children, and that is specifically sexual, have been arrested and taken to court, and almost half of those cases have been concluded successfully. And you see, the beauty of beacon teachers is that they are on the ground, as connected to other children workers. They are not on the ground, but you find that the beacon teachers are on the ground. They even go to the homes of these children. They even follow these children to their homes. They follow them to school, and you realize that it helps in concluding these cases. So our biggest plus is that we've followed these cases to logical conclusion. We've held hands as beacon teachers, sometimes even gone to courts, putting on our t-shirts. So when we get to those spaces, they know that the community is getting to understand what we are doing. But you realize that, as I told you before, when you get a case and you are following it through, you realize that at some point the law enforcement officers may be uncooperative because of corruption, and not all of them, a section. And when we hit there, you realize that sometimes it slows down the case, but we are blessed because we are connected to even the national security system, so sometimes we are able to hack that. Secondly, we get challenges in terms of the families and the communities, because you find that, for example, when you're following up a case of violence against children, you realize that sometimes the parent gets compromised by the perpetrator. So the parent receives some money and you remain there with the child. It's a very, very bad situation to find yourself. where the parent asks you, what interest do you have in this case? If I'm the parent of the child and I'm willing to leave this case, why are you pushing this case that much? So sometimes it's difficult. I think the next challenge is in terms of support for the beacon teachers, because remember, these teachers go far and wide to talk to their colleagues. Sometimes they need to be facilitated in terms of transport, but the bottom line is that beacon teachers don't get any pay from anywhere. It's just the drive. So you realize that sometimes they don't reach the far they would like to reach because of lack of resources. But I would like to say they have done a beautiful job using their own resources to reach out to these children.
So do you have any, maybe an example of a case that happened to you or you're dealing with as a teacher, and maybe things didn't go well?
I have so many. I have so many, Collins. One is of a very close relative of mine, who unfortunately defiled the daughter. And when I took up this case...
How old was the daughter?
Sorry?
How old was the daughter?
She was around 14.
Okay.
And the community was not happy. And this man went to my late dad and really talked to him so well. So I was summoned to my dad's home, and they were like, Robert, Tulo Donjeko. Tulo Donjeko in Luo means the snake has entered the guard, and now when the snake is inside there, the only option is to break it, or to just wait until the snake will come out. So for me, my option was breaking the guard, but for them was like, now don't treat this issue, don't handle it, this is now too close. But I pushed forward, and the man was arrested, but he managed to do his things and come out, and I was receiving very serious threats that he was planning to come and burn my house, and my family was very scared, but I had to stand my ground. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, he left. He left the area and went away with the family. And this case didn't end well, because this specific girl was taken out of the safe space where we had taken her. And I think there was a lot.
I think the next question I want to know is, someone might be watching and they're asking themselves, why children? Did you didn't have any other thing to do apart from going for children or trying to fight for the rights of children? Why children?
That's interesting. I remember when I finished Form 4, I wanted to be a journalist like you. And my dad told me, I can't afford that. I'll take you to a teacher's training college. And I thought that was like a punishment for me. But I took it up because I knew the background that I'm coming from. So after the training at Narok Teachers College, I came to Kibera, and I started teaching at Line Saba Primary School. There I came face to face with children facing abuse in the slum. I came face to face with children who are poverty stricken and who are so eager to learn. And I think that's where I got to really understand what children are going through. So when I was now employed with the government, I realized that drive to keep on talking for the children kept growing. And when I was now trained by Teacher Service Commission and Plan International, now it's like I decided and realized I'm not just going to be a teacher in classroom, but I'm going to be this teacher who also speaks out for the rights of children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So now, someone might be wondering, because, there's so many issues related to children that you've dealt with. And maybe let's just go back to what are some of these experiences? You are a children rights advocate, child rights advocate, and you deal with child protection and advocating for general rights of children.
Yeah.
What are some of these rights that people feel like these are things, these are just normal things, but you find that it's an infringement of children's rights?
Yeah, one that I would like to really talk about is the issue of corporal punishment. You and I will agree that we went through that in our schooling system, in our families, and it was normalized. Actually, some even use the Bible to support it. So it has become so normal that when we go to school and ask our colleagues that we can instill discipline in these children without really inflicting pain on them, as beacon teachers, we've actually been very unpopular in some quarters, where some teachers even call me and they are crying on phone. They're like, Robert, this is just too much, because sometimes the whole staff gangs up against this teacher because they're like, what makes you feel we can drop the cane? But you know, we are forgetting that even the government banned caning, and it's unfortunate the government banned caning but never gave the teacher an alternative. So the teachers feel like, Robert, if you come here and tell us that we can instill discipline without the cane, then these children will kill us. Some teachers actually say that, and we've had cases of children even hacking teachers to death. Yeah. So there is that fear, and corporal punishment is being normalized, but the truth is it is a violation against children's rights. And I'm glad, because we are now collaborating with the Positive Discipline Association of the UK, and we are training teachers on positive discipline. And these are so many tools that we are sharing with teachers out there that they can use to come up with strong students who are socially alive and are self-disciplined and are even useful members of the society. I've just mentioned one.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, before you share about, you mentioned about beacon teachers. Before you share about beacon teachers, I know, how have you been managing disciplining children in school without really inflicting pain on them?
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to confess here, Collins, that initially when I started teaching, I was a caning machine. Well, that's what I knew. You see, like, you only do what you know. Yeah. And most of us teachers cane because that's the only method that was used on us. Yeah. And it's very unfortunate I used that method, but after I was trained to be a beacon teacher, I realized that I can talk to my students. Most of the children would do everything not to disappoint you when they realize that you trust them. When they realize that you genuinely love them, they will do everything to make you happy.
Let me ask you, so how have you been able to manage children or to deal with children without really using the cane?
Yeah, so what I've actually managed to do is first to model. Children learn better when they see. So I've always modeled the behavior that I want the children to bring out. I've also modeled non-violence in school to help other teachers see that you can be on duty without really walking around with a stick, and children will still follow what you want them to do. So greatly I've been modeling, and secondly, as I was saying before, just ensuring that students really understand what you want. When you make it clear, Collins, you'll agree with me that some parents and some teachers tell children that let me find you having done this. Like, you don't want them to do it, but that's what you tell them to do. You see, that's confusing. Yeah. The way the brain of a child works is that if you don't want them to climb on this table, then you tell them, like, let your feet be on the floor. That's the right way of communicating to children. But you find that when you tell a child, don't climb on the table, then the mental picture they have is of a person on the table, and they'll end up doing that. So we need to really structure our messaging to the children so that they get to understand what we actually want them to do. Yeah.
So wewe ni mwalimu, and you know, maybe it's very difficult to deal with kids sometimes.
Yeah.
And maybe what do you really require for you to be able to deal with kids and being able to interact with them, being able to listen to them or make them open their minds or open themselves to talking to you? Because, you know, that is what many people don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a challenge maybe some teachers might be facing. They don't know how to deal with this child for him or her to be able to open up or share with them at any given time.
Yeah, the trick is first let's allow children to be children. It's unfortunate that we adults expect children to know it all, but they are just acting their age. We've been around for long, so we know better. But you see, children learn through their mistakes. So one thing, we need to allow children to make mistakes and learn out of those mistakes, and just allow them to also make mistakes that are age allowed. Like a child who is 3 years old is allowed to make a certain mistake, but a child who is at adolescence also makes specific mistakes. So we need to allow them to also explore and not to expect too much out of them. Secondly is patience. We've got to be very patient with children. We've got to be very patient with children. Sometimes we expect too much, as I said, but I've seen a child, because I've taught in primary school and now I teach in high school. You find that a child was so difficult in class 3. Teachers would even like help this child to leave school. But you find that if you are just a little bit patient with them, when they get to class 4, the child just makes 100 or 360-degree change. So you realize that a little bit of patience goes a long way, Collins.
So you mean that there is a little bit that is missing? Maybe can teachers get this from maybe training in schools or in campus or in colleges, or it's something that already teachers have been trained to deal with children, but it's just a matter of what may ignore too?
Yeah, I like what you're saying. First is at the level of training. We need to relook the kind of training that is being given to teachers. I want to confess that as much as the narrative that we are driving as beacon teachers of ensuring that children are safe to learn is taking root, it's not in our colleges, by the way. Yeah. So we are only telling teachers, we are teaching teachers how to teach. But are they going to teach stones and trees? No, they're going to teach human beings. So we also need to have a curriculum where teachers know how to handle the learners, know how to feel the learners. And then secondly, we've got to break a cycle of violence. You see, if it's a cycle, then at one point it has to be stopped. So I cane because I was caned. But now as Robert, I told you I started off as a caning machine. But now I've decided to stop. It means a student that I am training now will not do that because I never did that on them. So we've got to break that cycle of violence.
So let me ask you, this is rather, I think, a funny question, or I don't know how you find it, but are you guys trained in school to cane children? Are you, like, when you went for your training, was there a unit where you're told, this is how you deal with a child, or this is how you cane a child?
The simple answer to that question is a straight no. Actually, when we went for teaching practice, we were forbidden to carry the cane. And you know what happened when the teaching practice ended? Children were literally crying when teachers on teaching practice were leaving, because they bonded and they connected with these children, but they never had the cane. So this is a practice that we pick in the field.
Because sisi tunafikirianga awase wanafunzwa kupiga wanafunzi wakiwa shule.
No, it's not part of the teaching curriculum.
So what happens hapo katikati? What happens to an extent that you just find a teacher and starts beating children?
It's what I talked about. It's what I talked about, the cycle of violence. Yeah.
So is it because the community, the society has normalized it, and you find it as if you don't cane children, in your mind you know that they won't change or they won't do something? But in real sense, it's the opposite.
Yeah, it's
possible the other way around.
It's possible the other around. It's because it was done to me. And some even say I was caned and I turned out right. I was caned and I didn't die. But I'm a teacher, but I was caned. Collins, does it mean that if I was caned a little bit more, I would be a bank manager or the president? It doesn't add up. So it's just an idea that people are building up. It is getting used to things that are abnormal.
Yeah.
But my message is that we need to break this cycle,
Okay.
and understand that there are better tools that work long term. Remember, violence is instilling fear, is instilling pain, so that the child can act in a way that you want. But you know what? It will bring results short term. But positive discipline, which is talking to them and understanding them and putting clear guidelines, it will work long term.
You mentioned something about violence, and there has been a lot of violence against children recently, and the cases, and from the reports that we received, I think 2019, 2019 report that was released by the Department of Children's Services. The numbers are very worrying. That, you know, violence is really, it's something that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, sure.
So in your encounter as a teacher in your workplace, what has been your experience about violence against children?
Yeah, thank you so much, Collins, for that question. Violence against children is a disease, and it greatly affects learning. If we are to achieve our goal as a country and as a continent about education for all, then you also need to address the issue of violence against children, because we will not achieve 100% transition if a student will not report to school because a teacher Robert is so cruel. That's why we have children hiding in bushes, not going to school, because maybe there's a specific teacher who is so cruel. Violence against children leads even to death of children. We've heard of cases where children have lost their lives because of violence. When you talk about violence against children, we're even talking about sexual abuse. And this is not only domesticated in schools, this is also in the community, where we get cases of children as young as 5 years being molested. And these cases are in the rise. And during COVID-19, they were even escalated. So this level of violence affects learning big time, and we are being told that education is the biggest spender of the national budget. So if we need to really have this money used well, if we need to really change this nation, then we have to address the issue of violence against children. Violence against children is not only corporal punishment, it goes to sexual abuse, it even goes to issues of having children do work in terms of child labor. Yes, because we've had parents send their children to marketplaces, and they miss classes. Some people have always been telling me, hey Robert, you're advocating for girls' rights. What about our boys? And my response has always been, okay, I'm doing this for girls. Why can't you come join me so that you also speak for boys? But I feel boys that are empowered are needed. We need empowered boys to have empowered girls. It's neither this or this. It's actually having boys and girls move side by side. And I think we need to have efforts to have our boys also empowered. It needs to be deliberate. It won't just happen. Like we won't say that let's protect girls and then boys will sort out themselves. No, we've got to be very deliberate. And what I've actually realized is that women are powerful, but in their own right. Men are powerful in their own right. But in the community that we are living in now, I'm seeing a situation where women are home, and the boy child and the girl child goes back home and finds the mother there. And in school, I know you work in schools, and you'll agree with me that in school we also have more female teachers. So we are having a boy child who spends the most time in school being mentored by females, and when they go back home they also find this loving mother who also welcomes them. Then the question that comes up is, where are the men? So you and me, Collins, I really feel a challenge that we need to get out there. As men, and be very deliberate in terms of mentoring the boys. Most of my mentors are women, like the founder of Beacon Teachers Africa, Dr. Joan. She's really impacted my life, and other women have really impacted my life. But I have this feeling that boys need to have men also mentor them, and we need to be very deliberate. We need to get out there. Collins, we need to get out there. I feel I have that call of mentoring young boys, so that we don't have a society where men feel out of place, where women are more empowered than men, but we need to have both of them empowered, so that we have a just and a society that has equity. Yeah.
What do we need, from the government level, from the community level, from the civil society organizations and all that? What do we need to make sure that children are protected? Because there is a lot of work to be done out here. And sometimes there are these small weaknesses that we find that prevent us from protecting the rights of children. What can we do?
Thank you so much, Collins. What we need to do is we need to hold hands. You're a journalist, I'm a teacher, and we are on this bench today speaking about children. That's what we need to see replicated. We need to see more CSOs, more NGOs, more government bodies working with other bodies that speak children. Beacon Teachers are doing an amazing job. My call to action would be, let's have organizations partner with Beacon Teachers to really facilitate their movements, facilitate them in terms of getting them airtime to call. Because the other day I was handling a case from Mombasa, where a child had been trafficked all the way from Mombasa to Kisumu, and we were always on phone with Beacon Maria from Mombasa. And the good news is that this child, who was supposed to report to Form 1, was actually being taken to Kisumu to go and stay with relatives and to be used as a housemaid. But I want to report to you that as we speak, this child is back in Mombasa, and she's going to start higher education. So you realize that there's a lot of back and forth calls between Beacon Teachers all across the country. So if they are facilitated in terms of airtime and movement, that would be very, very helpful. On the part of government, we need to be now serious and be deliberate in terms of reducing the violence against children, so that children can settle down and learn. So we've got to have deliberate efforts. Let's have government officers who are in charge of ensuring that children are safe actually do their job, like the police officers, the children's department, and they can't do it alone. It gets back to what I said initially, holding hands and working together.
But of course, what are the weaknesses that you've identified, especially working with government, working with other organizations? What are these weaknesses that you feel like, if they are strengthened today, then we are going to have a better environment for children, and also getting justice for children?
Yeah, so what the challenge that we've seen is mostly when we have government having a lot of bottlenecks. Like you see, for Beacon Teachers, when we are out there, we are mad about children. When I talk about mad, I mean MAD, making a difference. Yes. Not like mad as in but we're actually losing our mind for this cause, and we are saying we need to really remove the bottlenecks. We really need to make the government offices accessible and really have them so open that a child can walk in and report. Let's have our chiefs really sensitized, so that they have the knowledge and the know-how on how to arrest these cases from the community. So we actually need that, and as I also hinted before, we need to have very, very sound policies. Very, very sound policies, because when, for example, we say corporal punishment is banned, what do we actually mean? What does it actually mean for the teacher in the classroom? What are the other mechanisms that have been put in place for this teacher to to handle in discipline. Because if you just say corporal punishment has been banned and then you don't give the teacher an alternative tool, you're setting up the teacher against the community. So we need to have deliberate efforts by the government, and not just speak, but also have action through legislation. The government needs to be intentional and deliberate in terms of coming up with policies, and policies that are alive to what is happening in the classroom. Collins have realized that as much as the government is trying, there is some loss of touch about what's happening. And we actually need to have really child participation actualized. We need to have forums for children to really say what they want. It's us talking at them. We now need to talk with the children and get to know what they really want, not just coming up with policies from the government and trying to implement them. Like now the government has said children should go to school without uniform. That's an order, but we also need to know how it may impact on the discipline and the work that the teachers do in school. Yeah.
And also, of course, security for children.
Sure.
All right, thank you very much. Maybe you can make your last comments on this camera.
Yeah, thank you so much, Collins. I want to say that children behave better when they feel better. And I don't know where we got this crazy idea that children will behave better if we make them feel worse. So we actually need to have our children feel loved. We actually need to have our children feel accepted, that they belong, and in turn we'll have them really exhibit the kind of behaviors that they want. So at this point in time, I want to really appreciate the work that is done by Beacon Teachers Africa and all the teachers out there and all those parents that are really supporting their children. And by and by we will get there. But as I leave the country on my Shivning Scholarship Award, and as I head to the University of Sussex to study international education and development, I want to take this opportunity to also motivate anybody who is listening that these are opportunities that are out there. You can visit www.shivning.org/apply, check out the website, put in your application, and you can always reach out to me so that I can mentor you. But I want to thank you so much, Collins, for having me, and thank you so much for the work you're doing at Mtoto News.